before I do that, I want to come back to the point that you've just made. This whole notion that it was demonstrably true what he's essentially saying, because let's not beat about the bush. What Keir Starmer is referencing, when he makes out that these are the Farage boats, he's referencing essentially something that people call Dublin regulation, Dublin Convention. That's what he's talking about, ladies and gents. And basically what that meant was that when we were in the EU, you had the ability to be able to potentially send migrants backwards and forwards, if you would like. So you could send people and you could receive people. That was essentially what the Dublin Convention was. You're saying, are you saying that this was a good thing, that it was working well?
No. What I'm saying is if we had it in place right now, it'd be much easier to get rid of people that we don't want in this country. But instead, what we have a system with, there's a lot of bureaucratic hurdles we have to get through.
So how was that working then? So let's just pick a random, let's go 2016 to 2020. So
I'm talking about what you would do now. What you would now have agreements in place now, and that would be much easier right now.
No, I need to be clear.
Because 2016 was a long time ago.
Right. So we've got data from 2008.
But that was then. I'm talking about, but that was a different situation, wasn't it?
I know what I'm talking about. I've not lost my marbles just yet.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying it's a different time. That's all.
I'm talking to you about the Dublin Convention. Yeah. This is the point that Keir Starmer is trying to land with people today. He's trying to plant the seed into people's minds that if it wasn't for Nigel Farage and/or Brexit, we would have been able to return en masse some of these economic migrants that are boarding these boats on the Channel. That is what I would basically say a complete misdirection and a ludicrous statement to make, because it is an actual fact that from 2016 onwards, and I can put a graph up on the screen actually just to show you this at home, we were receiving many more migrants in from the EU than we were sending. By a country mile.
But your graph, which I've seen, is true data from back then. We're talking about what would be happening right now with the different levels we've got and the different types of people coming here.
So talk me through this then.
So if you had a similar agreement to the one that was torn up in Brexit in place now, we would have faster returns because we would have these bilateral arrangements with all the EU nations. You don't have to do individual country-to-country arrangements. It would be quicker. That's all the point he's making. That's why he's saying they're Farage boats, because in a way it's because of Brexit it's making it harder.
So number one, he's blaming everyone that voted for Brexit on these boats.
That's not what he's saying.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is, because if he's blaming the boats on Brexit, then he's blaming the people that voted for Brexit on the vote. These are not Brexit boats, they're government failure boats.
No, Farage boats, not Brexit boats.
They're government failure boats, right? If he doesn't have the guts or the will to leave the ECHR, what you're talking about is a Dublin Convention that allowed us to return migrants to the first country they landed in that was a safe country. And you talk about bilateral agreements. Hallelujah, we have one. The one out, 7,000 in that we have from France. That didn't get us anywhere, is it? Because Starmer is so weak.
That's not comparing like with like, though, is it?
You just said we should have bilateral agreements.
Yeah.
Do we not have one with France?
Yes, but that's the one.
Is that a success for you?
But the one you said 1 in and 7,000 out. But that's not. You're not comparing two sets of data there. That's different.
Yes, I am, because 7,000 have come in since that bilateral agreement was signed, and how many have gone out?
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, You need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward. And that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
It's a one in and one out. That's the whole point of the arrangement.
So it's a swap. So how does it reduce the amount of people?
So it's not actually, 7,000 has nothing to do with that arrangement.
Yes, of course it does, because it's meant to be one in.
It's a different thing.
No, how is it different? How is it different, Paul?
But he was also,
in
his speech, worth saying a lot of other things about immigration.
But hang on, no, let's stick to this point, because he's rolled back on that.
It was quite a wide-ranging speech.
In his usual cowardly way. He's rolled back from what he said because he's the master of U-turns. And now he's trying to blame the votes, not on his failure, not on even Conservative failure. He's trying to blame it on Brexit voters. First, he insults...
he didn't mention the voters.
Yes, he did, because he...
No, he didn't. He mentioned Farage specifically.
No, and what did he mean by Farage? You said,
votes.
Yes, and he meant by Brexit. And how did Brexit come into play? People voted for it. You can't have a cop-out. You can't say that Reform and Farage are racist and not at the same time insult their supporters.
Well, again,
you can't blame the vote. You can't
racist.
blame... Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
You can't blame the... Oh, my God. Own your words, Labour. Come on. If you're going to smear millions of people, just own it.
Well, again,
you can't say...
That's not what he said.
He did not say that Reform is racist. He didn't use the word racist.
In his interview, I think, in the last few hours...
I'm sorry, in his speech yesterday, he didn't say racist.
He didn't say Nigel Farage was racist in his speech yesterday. I was sitting there watching it. At no point did he say that.
Did he say Reform is racist?
No, at no point did he say that.
What did he say?
He said some of the policies might be racist, and he said we are against racism, and that's true. And he framed the whole next election as Labour versus Reform.
No. He framed the whole next election as Labour against so-called racist. Shabana Mahmood said it was worse than racist. Wes Streeting said we were racist. Well, so you cannot one day smear millions of people as racist, and then the next day roll back on it, and then blame government failure on those that voted for Brexit. Well, for God's sake, take responsibility for the government's failures.
I've just come from 5 days of the conference, and at no point has any of that caricature you've described there been anything I've witnessed or heard or seen at all. I mean, the next election...
I'm sorry, have you been attending fringe events?
The next election has been all framed about whether or not you vote for Reform as a government or whether you vote Labour as a government. And that's the government's strategy, Labour's strategy.
So you're telling our viewers...
choice.
You're telling our viewers that the cabinet members did not say that Reform is racist and a threat to our country and... worse than racist. Are you looking at our voters and saying that's not what was said?
Well, if you can show me any evidence that a cabinet minister stood up and slagged off voters ahead of an election,
you don't say racial reasons say that.
Right, so let me ask you this, right? At the end of the day, Keir Starmer suggested, well, he didn't suggest it, he out and out said that the policies, he regards many of the policies as racist. Right.
Policies?
So, yes.
Who makes the policies?
So if you've got a policy and then a voter votes for it, so you've got a policy that you regard as racist, and a voter votes for it. What does that make that voter?
At no point,
through the common sense logic in the Labour Party.
At no point have you ever heard me decry a voter as being racist.
We're not talking about
wanting to vote.
No, I'm asking you asking you a logical question. If the Labour Party deem some of Reform UK's policies as racist, and then Bob from I don't know whatever Windsor decides to vote for it, what is Bob? If he is voting
He's somebody
for what
who's probably
racist policy, what is...
I think people who are minded to vote for Reform UK are desperate for change. They're disgruntled about the things they see around them. They detect a sort of sense in the community that things are not all going well, and they want something to be done about it. And our argument has to be... Well,
your argument is that they're racist for wanting that. That's your argument.
No, of course not.
Yes,
what we're saying is that if you want those changes, then here are the ways to achieve it. An easy slogan and a soundbite from Farage isn't going to do it.
I'm sorry, I'm going to pull you up on that.
The hard yards of government are actually about difficult policy choices.
I'm going to pull you up. I'm going to pull you up because your ILR, our ILR policy, indefinite leave to remain policy, was deemed racist, and that's what all your cabinet members said. And they went even further because I think Shabana Mahmood said it was worse than racist. I don't know what that means. Yet you kind of put a carbon copy policy. Would you agree?
I don't think it's a carbon copy
What's the difference?
because it predates the announcement from Farage on the policy, so it came first.
What's the difference?
So it can't be a copy of something that came
policy came first. What's the difference?
Well, it's not a carbon copy.
OK, what is the difference then?
Well, the difference is we're in government trying to tackle a difficult
What is the difference between your policy and our policy?
Are just coming up with slogans.
Do you know the difference?
I mean,
do you want me to tell you?
The reform policy collapsed within about an hour of being announced, didn't it? Because it was based on sand, figures that had been denied by the people who produced them. The Centre for Policy Studies disavowed the very basis of the entire policy. And look, if you're going to be serious about being a governing party and running this great country, you can't build it on sand. Policy has to be robust and stand up to scrutiny of the public and journalists and the rest. And that, the centrepiece of Nigel's policy collapsed within an hour.
Paul, tell me the difference between your...
It did though.
Tell me the difference. I've asked you a question. You've just come from party conference.
I have.
Right. You obviously know your ILR policy very well. What is the difference between yours and ours?
Well, I would say, A, we're in government and we're actually doing it.
Is that why it's not racist?
And B, it's part of a wider panoply of policies on immigration.
So why is yours
we need
not
managed,
racist?
Fair immigration.
So it's exactly the same.
And we need to stop the boats and we need to shut the hotels. And those are the things that we're doing in government, as opposed to a policy you announced in a press conference which absolutely disintegrated under the first
you obviously
don't.
Let me school you on the difference, shall I, Paul? Because the difference between
I'm always willing to listen to other views. And if you have some insight to share, I'm more than happy to hear it.
It's not insight. It's been all over the press. If you just bother to read your indefinite leave to remain policy, is that certain people, if you were promised indefinite leave to remain after 5 years, that's going to change if you don't meet certain criteria. No criminal record, speak English, and some kind of elusive community...
what's wrong with that? That sounds like a good policy.
I'm just telling you the policy, because are you going to interrupt everything I say, or are you going to let me speak?
Right, hang on. Don't be rude to each other, by the way, because we don't do rude...
Yeah, I'm outlining your policy
debate
and our policy, right? So if they don't meet those policies after 5 years, those requirements, it moves to 10 years. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
hang on. And what happens if they don't meet it after 10 years? Are they kicked out?
Well, I don't know.
Well, exactly.
But your beef is with the people being...
My beef is being called racist.
No,
Labour calling us racist, while quietly putting out the exact same policy.
Well, the policy is saying...
You don't even know the difference. You can't tell me why your ILR is racist and why ours isn't. Can you tell me one thing that makes us racist?
The policy is about being able to speak English, being integrated in society and doing community work. So now, who disagrees with that?
Your whole party does, because when we brought it out, you said it was racist. You even said it was on that basis, it was on the basis of our policy that Keir Starmer called us racist. You just said it. But you can't tell me why it's racist.
Do you want a final comeback on that before I go to a break?
Well, I would just say that I think people should speak English, they should be involved in their communities, and they should have a clean criminal record, and that's the basis of which you can stay in this country. And I think that's a good idea, and that's a good policy.
Right, so I think I've got it. I think what I'm summarising here is that when Labour say it, it's fine, but when Reform say it, it's not.
But they're saying something different. It's not.
You haven't told us what the difference is. You haven't told us what the difference is, Paul.
Oh, I'll be here until Christmas at this